Hello and welcome back to Get Great at Maths. I'm here to help you pass your maths exam, so hit that like and subscribe button. We're going to look at keywords, key formulas and how to gain top marks. So let's get ready to get great at maths. This question is on multiplying fractions, and we have got to work out and we have got to give our answer as a mixed number, and we're going to look at it in simplest form. So these are the key words from the question, and this question is worth 3 marks. So we must show our working out in order to be able to get the full marks for this question. Have a go at the question, press pause, and then when you've done the question, press play to hear the answer. So on this question, we've got to convert the first fraction into a top-heavy fraction to be able to multiply the two fractions together. So we cannot multiply the numerators and the denominators until it is written as a mixed fraction, as a top-heavy fraction. So my 25 over 7 comes from doing the 3 whole ones times by the 7 parts, so 3 times 7 is 21, add on the 4 extra sevenths, which gives me the 25 out of the 7 in total. That's 25 sevenths times by the 7 over 10, that doesn't change. Then all I need to do is multiply my numerators and multiply my denominators and then cancel. I can actually cancel first because both of them have got a 7 in, so I can cancel those 2 7s, giving me 5 times 1 and then 1 times 2 because the 7s will cancel, leaving me with 5 over 2, which will give me a top-heavy fraction. Now I've got to leave my answer as a mixed fraction, so I need to know how many times does 2 go into 5. Now 2 fits into 5 twice, and then you've got 1 left over, which means my answer is 2 whole ones and 1/2, or 2 1/2. The mark scheme can be seen here, nice and clear. OE means all equivalent, so if you've got a bigger number by multiplying the 25 by 7 to give you 175 and the 7 times 10 to give you 70, then cancel it down, you can get method marks for that as well. This question is on product of prime factors. We're going to identify the key words first. So they are product of prime factors, index form, and you must explain your answer in order to get the answer mark of 1 mark, which is shown in the bottom right hand corner. Please make sure you have shown why the answer is correct or not. You cannot just write yes or no. Press pause, have a go, and then press play when you're ready to hear the answer. So in this question, it wants us to write the answer in index form. Now the answer that's been given is 2 times 2 times 2 times 5. Now if we start with the right hand side, 5 times 2 gives me 10, times by 2 again gives me 20, times by 2 again gives me 40. So yes, the answer is correct. But the answer wants to be given in index form. Is 2 times 2 times 2 times 5 in index form? The answer you should be saying is no. We have to write it as 2 to the power of something, and that power is 3 because 2 times 2 times 2 is the same as 2 cubed. So 2 cubed times 5 is how we write it in index form, so the answer was incorrect. The mark scheme says no, OE means all equivalent, and you have to give the reason why because it is not written in index form. It was worth 1 mark, and the guidance on the end tells us what the correct answer should have been. This question is on product of prime factors. The key words of this question are the value of x, and we're going to look at finding x, and this is worth 1 mark. In order to be able to do this, we need to know the key formula, which is 1 over x to the power of n equals x to the minus n. And this is one of the index rules, and you need to know your index laws. Now press pause, have a go at the question, and then press play when you're ready to see the answer. Now looking at the left hand side, we've got a number which is 1 over 16, and 16 is a key number, and we need to know what this is in index form. So 16 is the same as 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which is 2 to the power of 4. Now I'm going to use the key formula where x is equal to 2 and n is equal to 4. So 1 over 2 to the 4 is equal to 2 to the minus 4. Now that is going to be the same as this 2 to the power of x. So I can now compare my powers, and the index on the left hand side is going to be the same as the index on the right hand side. So that means x will equal minus 4. Remember to write your answer on the dotted line. That will give you your 1 mark. The mark scheme just says there is 1 mark for answering this question. percentage problem, and this is on the non-calculator paper, so we have to be able to answer this question without using a calculator. Keywords of this question are 5 litres, each week, 450 millilitres, 9 weeks, used over 80%, and we've got to show how we decide if we are correct. So you must show your working, and this is worth 5 marks. Now the key facts we're going to have to use for this question are that 1 litre is 1000 millilitres. To find 10% we need to divide by 10. And to find 80% we need to times that answer we got to 10% by 8. Press pause, have a go at the question and then press play when you're ready to hear the answer. So our first fact that is up in yellow is that 5 litres is equal to 5000 millilitres, so it's using the top key fact up there and that's worth 1 mark. The next part of it tells us each week, so this is the bit in blue, 1 week is equal to 450 millilitres. Now the bit in green says we have got 9 weeks. Now in 9 weeks we have got 450 millilitres and we're going to times that by 9. Now this is on the non-calculator paper, so if you wrote down 450 times 9, that gives you 1 mark. But to actually do the calculation you get another mark for working it out without a calculator. Remember, we set our working out as just appeared here, and we do 0 times 9 first, which is 0. 5 times 9 is 45. Remember to carry the 4. Then we do 9 times 4, which is 36, add on the 4 gives me 40. So for 9 weeks I get 4050 millilitres. That is your 3rd mark. Now the question says that after 9 weeks we will have used over 80% of the oil in this tin. So we're going to look at what 80% is of the full amount. And we've got 5 litres, which is 5000 millilitres. So 10% of 5000 is 5000 divided by 10, which has appeared here, which is 500. Now we've got to work out 80%. So to find 80%, I'm going to do 5000 times by 8. Now 5 times 8 is 40, add on the 2 zeros gives me the 40,000 millilitres. That is our 4th mark. Now to get the 5th and final mark, we need to compare that answer to the answer we just got up in green, which is 4050 millilitres. Now 4050 millilitres is greater than 4000, so therefore, yes, they are correct for 1 mark. And this is how we've shown how we've decided whether our answer is correct or not. So you must show working in order to be able to get the full 5 marks for this question. The mark scheme on this question, here is my answer on the left hand side. You can see that it's broken down into different stages. SOI means seen or implied. OE means or equivalent. This section here means that we show how many marks are awarded for each part. M1s and B1s are method marks. A2 are the answer marks. You must state what the final answer is. We've got method marks here in this next box. And the last part is just guidance to show us what answers could be seen in case you didn't show your working out fully. This question is on scatter graphs and there are multiple parts to this question. We're going to start off by looking at part A and we're going to look at plotting the 4 remaining points, and this is worth 2 marks. Now in the exam the grid will already be drawn out for you, so all you've got to do is plot onto the graph. Now we've got to go for the mark in January, which is 70, so if you draw an imaginary line up or use your ruler to draw that line going up. And then at 86 we draw a line going across from February, and then if you put a cross where those 2 lines meet, that is your coordinates 70, 86. Now you need to do that for all the coordinates. So the next coordinate is 44, 60, so you will go across 44 and then up 60. The next one will be 37 going across and 48 up, and the next one will be 38 across and then 50 up. Remember, you go along the corridor and up the stairs to plot coordinates. Now if you plot the first 4 coordinates correctly, you get yourself 2 marks. If you plotted 2 or 3 points correctly, you will get 1 mark, and B1 means a method mark, and there is some tolerance allowed of plus or minus half a square. In this part, the keywords are describe and correlation, and this is worth 1 mark. Press pause, have a think about the answer, and then press play when you're ready to hear it. So this type of correlation, when you've added in the 4 extra points, you can see you've got a positive correlation. This is worth 1 mark, and it says ignore embellishments, which basically means if you wrote positive correlation, they will just accept it, so you don't need to worry if you wrote anything else extra. The positive is the key part of this. Keywords in this part are circle and then the greatest improvement. So we've got to look at the student that's got the greatest improvement, and this is worth 1 mark. Have a look at the graph, decide which point you would circle. And you should have picked this point here. So the point we should have selected was the coordinate 30, 66 only for 1 mark. The reason we've chosen this is because in January they have got a low score, so they got 30 marks in January, yet in February they've made a huge improvement and they've over doubled their score, so they've got 66. So as long as you've circled on your grid the correct answer, you will get the method mark for that. Now in this part we have to work out the percentage change of this student's mark, and that is the student that's highlighted in the blue circle, and we've got to work out their percentage change. This is worth 3 marks. Now to be able to do this we need the key formula, which is the percentage change is the difference divided by the original times by 100. So that means the difference in their marks divided by the original mark times by 100. Write down this formula, highlight it, stick it in a bubble, make sure it stands out, press pause and have a go at doing the question, then press play when you're ready to hear the answer. Now the January mark was the original mark, which was 30, which is where this mark has come across from. The February mark is 66, which is how high it's gone up, and that's the new mark. The difference is the 66 take away 30. Now if you do that 66 take away 30 divided by 30, which is the original, times by 100, that gives you 2 marks for writing that down. 66 take away 30 would give you 1 mark. Now 66 take away 30 is 36, and 36 over 30 can be cancelled down by dividing both those numbers by 6. 36 divided by 6 is 6, 30 divided by 6 is 5, which means we have 6/5 of 100, which is 6 divided by 5 times by 100. If I rewrite that, it makes it easier to work out this answer without a calculator, because this is on a non-calculator paper. So this means 100 divided by 5 times by 6. So the easiest way to do 100 divided by 5 is see how many times does 5 go into 10. It goes into 10 twice, and then 5 into 0 is 0, so it is 20 times. So 100 divided by 5 is 20. Then I multiply that 20 times by 6, 2 times 6 is 12, add on the 0 gives me 120 for my final third mark. Remember to write your answer on the dotted line. Now the marks being of this question shows us the 120 is the final answer. It was worth 3 marks. Here are my method marks. The OE means all equivalent, and there is guidance here on the end to show us where all these marks are being awarded from. This is the last part of this question. Keywords in this question are 79 marks, absent, February, line of best fit, estimate, reliable, and give an answer for your reasoning. This is worth 1 mark. Think about your answer, press pause, press play when you're ready to hear the answer. So the line of best fit is a line that goes through the majority of points following the shape of the graph. So this is a positive correlation here with the line of best fit going through as many points as we can. Now the question says there are 79 marks. Now 79 marks here is the green line that's just gone up, and you can see that that doesn't reach my line of best fit. And we want to know what would happen when we get 79 marks, what would the score in February be? Is this method reliable? Can we use this scatter graph to show what is going on? And you've got to give a reason for your answer. So you can't just write down yes or no, you have to give a reason for the answer as well. So the mark scheme says no, and you have to draw the line of best fit. It should not extend beyond the data provided. Okay, so the line of best fit doesn't fit near this green line at 79. OE or equivalent, and that will give you the 1 mark. Note, it says the data only goes up to 70 marks. If you've written something like that, that is absolutely fine. That will give you the 1 mark for this question. This is a question to do with the volume of the prism. There are several methods in order to be able to work this question out. I'm going to show you 2 different methods to be able to work this answer out. Keywords of this question are the word volume, and this question is worth 4 marks. Now, to be able to answer this question, we need to know some key formula. And the key formulas that we need to know are the volume of a cuboid, it's the length times the width times the height, and the volume of a prism is the area of the cross-section times the depth. Please write down these formulas and highlight them and make sure you know what these 2 key formulas are. Now, for method 1, we're going to use the top formula, which is the volume of a cuboid. Now, I'm going to split this L shape into 2. See the blue line where it's split it up, so I've got 2 cuboids. Cuboid A, and I've got cuboid B. Now we're going to look at the volume of cuboid A. Now the volume is calculated by doing the length times the width times the height. So that is 3 times 4 times 1 for the volume of cuboid A, which gives me an answer of 12. For volume B, I've got to work out the volume of the second cuboid. Now we can see the height of it is 1. The depth of it is 4, which is the same as the depth of A, and how far back it goes is this total distance across the front 6. Take away the 1 for section A, which gives me 5. So to work out the volume of B, I do 4 times 5 times 1, which will give me 20. Now to work out the total volume, all I need to do is add these 2 volumes together, so 12 plus 20, there's your 3rd mark, which gives you 32 centimetres cubed for 1 mark. Now the units are included in the answer, so all you need to do is write the number 32 on the dotted line. Method 2 involves using the formula for the volume of the prism, which is the area of the cross-section times the length. Now the cross-sectional area is the shape of the L shape. So I need to work out the area of this L shape, and then I need to multiply it by the depth, which is how far back we're going to go. So again, I'm going to split this L shape into 2. So I've got rectangle A at the front. Now the area of rectangle A is 3 high and 1 across. So that's 3 times 1, which is 3 for a mark. Rectangle B, again the distance is 5 times the height, which is 1, so the area of B is going to be 5 times 1, which equals 5 for 1 mark. The total area of the L shape is going to be the 3 plus the 5, which is 8. Then to work out the volume, I've got to do the area of the L shape, which is the area of my cross section, times by the depth. So that is going to be 8 times by the depth, which is 4 going back. So 8 times 4, which is 32. Again for your final mark, and remember to write your answer on the dotted line. The units of centimetres cubed have already been given to you in this answer. The mark scheme for this question shows the answer is 32. It was worth 4 marks. Here are your method marks, so you can see where you're getting the M1 is a method mark, M2 means 2 method marks, and A1 is an answer mark, but there you have to see. And the guidance could be seen on the right hand side, so it shows you where the marks are being awarded from. This question is on proportionality. We've got some graphs and we need to work out what the key words are on this question. So on part A we have got the word directly proportional to. You need to know what these key words mean, and this is worth 1 mark. Now this keyword directly proportional means as one thing gets bigger, the other thing gets bigger. So we need a graph that is increasing, which is going from the bottom left to the bottom right. And a directly proportional graph goes through the origin, through the point 0, 0. So there are 2 graphs that go through the point 0, 0, graph A and graph C. But directly proportional must be a graph which everything increases at the same rate, so it must be a straight line. So the answer we're looking for is graph C, which is worth 1 mark. Part B is inversely proportional. That is the opposite to directly proportional, and this is worth 1 mark. So if you've got a value, it means 1 divided by the value you've got to start with. So it is 1 over x, or 1 over the square root of x, or whatever you're inversely proportional to. So in this case, it's just y is inversely proportional to x. So that means y is equal to k divided by x. And the graph of 1 over x looks like graph D. You need to know what your graph shapes look like. That is worth 1 mark. This question is on inequalities. Now the key word of this question is the word solve. And what that word solve means is we've got to work out the value of x. And this is worth 3 marks. Press pause, have a go at trying to find x, and then press play when you're ready to hear the answer. So the first step we're going to do is expand the bracket on the left hand side. That means multiply that 4 by both terms in the bracket. So we're going to multiply 4 by x to give me 4x, and 4 times negative 3 to give me negative 12. And this will give you 1 mark. So 4x take away 12 is less than x. From here, I've now got to pick the smaller number of x, which is the x on the right hand side. And I'm going to do the opposite to plus x, which is subtract x, and I'm going to take x from both sides. On the left hand side, I've got 4x take away x, which gives me 3x. The minus 12 stays put, and the x take away the x on the right hand side gives me 0. I'm now going to look at getting rid of this negative 12 on the left hand side. The opposite to take away 12 is plus 12, so I'm going to add 12 to both sides. So 3x take away 12 plus 12 is just 3x on the left hand side. And on the right hand side, 0 plus 12 is 12 for the second mark. Now I need to get rid of this times by 3, so I've got 3 times x on the left hand side. The opposite to multiply by 3 is divide by 3. So 12 divided by 3 is 4, so x is less than 4 for the final mark. Remember to make sure you write your answer on the dotted line. The mark scheme says in this question that x is less than 4, gives me the 3 marks, and you can see M1 is a method mark, and then it says later on FT there. Now FT means follow through, and there means you get a follow through mark for the working for your calculation that you've done in case you made a mistake earlier on. In part B, we've got to show this answer we've just got x is less than 4 on a number line. Press pause, have a go at working out what the answer looks like, and then press play when you're ready to hear the answer. So the answer you've got above, okay, is the answer you're going to be using to separate, to show on this number line, and the number line has already been drawn out for you, and this question is worth 2 marks. So we're going to go to the point 4, and we want x is less than 4. Now because it is only less than, we draw a hollow circle at this point, and the circle is going to be at that point 4, or just above the point 4, and because we want less than 4, that means we're going to draw an arrow to the left hand side. That's all you need to do for 2 marks. So you need to have a hollow circle and an arrow pointing to the left. The mark scheme shows correct representation of the mark on the number line. 1 mark for showing a hollow circle, and 1 mark for the arrow. So they're where the 2 marks are coming from. FT again is a follow through mark, so if you got the answer to part A wrong, then you will still get method marks on the next part of it. This question is on reciprocal graphs. And we're going to look at the keywords in this question. And the first keyword is the word complete. And we've got to complete this table for 1 mark. So basically we've got to fill in the missing value. Press pause, have a go at working out the answer, and press play to listen to the answer. So we've got the equation y equals 6 over x. So we've got to work out the missing y value. So you're told x values along the top, and then we've got to work out the x value. So for example, if x is negative 6, 6 divided by negative 6 gives me negative 1, which is why y is negative 1 underneath it. We've got to work out when x is negative 2. So if x is negative 2, y is 6 divided by negative 2, which is negative 3, so all you've got to do is write negative 3 in the box. The next part of the question, we've got to draw the graph. Okay, so the equation we've just worked out the values for, we've now got to draw that graph, and that is worth 3 marks. Press pause, draw out the graph, see if you can work out what the axis is going to look like, and then press play when you're ready to hear the answer. So to draw the graph, we take each point separately. So the coordinates negative 6, negative 1 is the first point we're going to plot. So you go 6 along the corridor, so that's 6 to the left, as it's negative 6, and 1 down.
So you put a cross at that point there. The next coordinate is the coordinate -3, -2. So that's 3 to the left and 2 down we put a cross at. The next coordinate is -2, -3. So we go 2 to the left and 3 down. Then we've got the coordinate -1, -6. So that's 1 to the left and 6 down. And we can do the same on the other side. So we've got 1, 6 as a coordinate, 2, 3, 3, 2, and the last coordinate is 6, 1. Once you've plotted all these points, you've got to join them together to make a smooth curve. And we're going to get two different curves in here. So we get two curves on each side, and they're both going to form asymptotes at the x-axis and the y-axis. So the curve will never hit the x-axis or the y-axis. And that was worth 3 marks. The mark scheme shows where the marks are awarded on this question, and it shows that you can get the full marks for stating, for plotting the points correctly, and then also for drawing a smooth curve to get the 3 marks on this question. The mark scheme on this question shows that for part A you needed to write down -3 for 1 mark, and part B you had to draw the correct graph to get 3 marks on this question. The curve must be joined and not touch either of the axis. And lower down it says B2, which is 2 marks for 7 or 8 points plotted correctly, and B1 is 1 mark for 5 or 6 points plotted correctly. FT is a follow-through mark for getting to the value that you used if you made a mistake on part A. So if you used your answer, then you can still get the method marks on that. This question is a percentage problem. We're going to look at the keywords in the question first. So we've got 10% is an increase. We've got another 10%, which is also an increase. Now you're told that these two 10% added together gives me 20%. Then you've got to show the worker is incorrect. Then you've got to work out the correct percentage increase, and you must show you're working out. This is worth 5 marks in total. Now to be able to answer this question, there are a few key facts we need to know. So our key facts are that our multiplier is 100 plus our percentage divided by 100. And the word "and" in probability means multiply. So we're going to look at this word "and". Please write down the key facts, highlight them, stick them in a bubble with your other key facts. Press pause, have a go at the question, and then press play when you're ready to see the answer. So to start with, we're going to work out our multiplier. Now the multiplier is 100 plus the percentage, which is 10, divided by 100. And this is the percentage increase for both of in 2017 and in 2018. It's exactly the same for both of them. Now 100 plus 10 is 110, divided by 100 is 1.1 for 1 mark. Now we've got a pay increase and a pay increase. Now this word "and" means multiply. So I'm going to take my first pay increase, which is 1.1, and I'm going to multiply that by my second pay increase, which is also 1.1. That will give you 2 marks for doing that section. Now this is a non-calculator question, so we need to be able to work this out without a calculator. Now if I ignore the decimal points to start with, I've got 11 times 11. Now you should know 11 times 11 is 121. But we have got a number after the decimal point and another digit after the decimal point. So there are 2 digits behind the decimal point. So for my number 121, there are going to be 2 digits behind that decimal point, the 2 and the 1, which means my answer will be 1.21 for 1 mark. We've then got to work out the correct percentage increase. So my percentage increase is going to be 1.21 is going to equal my 100 plus the percentage increase that we want to work out in yellow divided by 100, just putting the values into the multiplier formula again. So we're then going to solve this to find the percentage increase, and that will give us the answer. So to get rid of this divide by 100, I'm going to multiply both sides by 100. So 1.21 times 100 is 121, is equal to 100 plus my percentage increase, which is what we're trying to find. So to work out my percentage increase, I'm going to get rid of this plus 100. So the opposite to plus 100 is subtract 100. So I'm going to take 100 from both sides. So 121 take away 100 is 21. Now because this is a positive number, it is an increase, so this is my percentage increase is 21%, and that is your final 5th mark. The mark scheme on this question shows us the 5 marks here. The correct answer is 21, and it says with the correct working. M3 means 3 method marks. OE means or equivalent, so if you'd have multiplied your 1.1s by a number, for example 100 on the right hand side to help us work it out, then that would have been absolutely fine. An answer mark, so A1 is an answer mark of getting 121 or 1.21. The SOI means seen or implied. Be careful down the bottom, it says SC2 for answer of 21, so if you just got an answer of 21, the maximum score you can get is 2 marks. And if you got 121 or 1.21 with no working, you will only get 1 mark for those values. So it's really important that you show you're working out when the question says you must show you're working out, otherwise you can't get the full marks for the question even if you got the answer correct. This question is a force pressure area problem, and we're going to look at the keywords of the question first. So we've got 198.5 newtons. We've got a length of 4.9 centimetres, width of 4.1 centimetres. The estimate is what we've got to find of the pressure, and we're given the key formula, pressure is equal to force divided by area. This question is worth 4 marks. Now key facts you're going to need in this question are that the word estimate means you've got to round your numbers to one significant figure, and the area of the rectangle is equal to the length times the width. Write down the key formulas, highlight them, stick them in the bubble, press pause, have a go at answering the question, then press play when you're ready to hear the answer. So we're going to look at the area of the rectangle, which is the length times the width, which is 4.9 times 4.1. Now we've got to estimate these values and round them to one significant figure. That is one digit that is not 0. So 4.9 rounds to 5 and 4.1 rounds to 4. So the estimate of the area for 1 mark is 5 times 4, which gives you an answer of 20. We've then got to work out the pressure. Now the pressure we're told is the force divided by the area, and the force we've got is 198.5 divided by my estimated area of 20. Now I've now got to estimate that 198.5. Now rounding that to one significant figure is basically rounding it to the nearest 100. So the first digit is not going to be 0, the other 2 digits are going to be 0. And 198.5 rounds to 200. That would give you 1 mark, and then doing 200 divided by 20 is your 2nd mark for this section. So that is 3 marks in total up until now. Now we've got 200 divided by 20 to do without a calculator. You can cross off the zeros off at the end, and then 20 divided by 2 is just 10. So the estimated pressure is 10 for 1 mark. Make sure you write your answer on the dotted line. The mark scheme on this question shows us clearly that this is worth 4 marks. Now it's got 10 and then it's got NFWW. Now NFWW means not for wrong working. So if you wrote down the answer 10 without the right working, you would get 0 marks. So you must show the correct working to get the answer 10. M1 is a method mark. The word there means the answer you got for 200. So if you'd have rounded your 198.5 wrong, and you got a different number to 200, as long as you used your answer, you would still get the mark. Again, the same for their area. If you worked out the answer to be different to 5 times 4, then you would still get a method mark for this section. This is a question on trigonometry, Pythagoras' theorem and ratio, and it's a problem involving all 3 of these things. We're going to look at the key words within the question to start with, and the key measurements that are given. So we've got a length of AD, which is 10, which is the distance in the diagram you can see highlighted in yellow. The angle BAD, which is the angle shown in the diagram between BA and D. And then we've got an angle of 90 degrees, which are the 2 squares in the diagram at B and D. So angle ABD and angle BCD are both right angles. All this information is in the diagram. Now you're told that the ratio of the length BD to DC is 1 to 2.4. What that means is BD is equivalent to 1, so that length here that's just highlighted in green is equivalent to 1. Then the length D to C is 2.4, which has just been highlighted in blue. We've got to work out the length of B to C, which has just been highlighted in pink, and you must show you're working out. The question is worth 7 marks. There is a lot of information that you're going to have to do in this question to be able to get the 7 marks. And to be able to answer this question, you need to know the key facts. Now our first key fact is that we're going to be using trigonometry, which is SO, CA, TOA. So you need to know how to find SO, CA or TOA using trigonometry. You will also need to know some exact trig values. So you've either got to work out whether it's sine of 30, which is a half, cos of 30, which is root 3 over 2, or tan of 30, which is root 3 over 3. These things are facts that you need to know. If you don't know them, write them down and highlight them. Make sure you know those key formula. You're also going to be using Pythagoras' theorem, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And these are the key facts we need to be able to answer this question. Make sure you've written down the key facts, highlight them, stick them in a bubble and write them with your other key facts that you've got already. Have a go at doing the question, press pause and then press play when you're ready to have a go at doing the answer. So to start with, we're going to look at the triangle ADB. And on this triangle, the hypotenuse is the longest length, which is from A to D because it is opposite the right angle at B. The opposite is the green side because it is opposite the angle 30 degrees, which means my other side is the adjacent. So I'm using the hypotenuse and the opposite. So on my key facts up on the top right, I need to highlight all the H's. Now the H's I'm highlighting because I know the hypotenuse is 10. I want to find the opposite, so I'm going to highlight the opposites. Now the one which uses both the opposite and the hypotenuse is the first one here, which is the SO. So we're going to be using SO to work out the opposite length. Now once I've worked out that it's SO, the O always goes in the middle, so it's SOH. Now the top line that's just been highlighted shows that this is a divide. The one underneath shows we've got a times. And we want to find the opposite, so I cover up the opposite and I'm left with S and H, and the line in between means multiply. So my key formula is opposite is equal to sine of the angle times by hypotenuse, where I've called the angle theta. That symbol there means theta. Write down the key formula in red and highlight it. Now if you put opposite to be the length B to D, the angle is going to be 30, so it's sine of 30, and my hypotenuse is 10. You've got 1 mark for putting in the values for 30 and for 10 into that formula. The next mark comes from knowing the value of sine 30. And I've written my key formula up on the right hand side, and we know that sine 30 is equivalent to 0.5. So 0.5 times 10 gives me the second mark. Now 0.5 times 10, literally a half of 10, is 5, my third mark. So I've worked out the length of B to D. Now we're told the ratio of B to D to C is 1 to 2.4, but I know that B to D is actually 5, not 1. So to get from 1 to 5, I've got to multiply by 5, which means I've got to multiply my 2.4 by 5. So DC is going to be 2.4 times by 5. If you wrote that, that would give you 1 mark. Now to multiply by 5 without a calculator is quite tricky. You could do it by pen and paper method, or the easier way is to multiply by 10 and then halve your answer, because 10 divided by 2 is the same as 5. So if I multiply 2.4 times 10, which gives me 24, divided by 2 gives me 12 for 1 mark. So my length BC along the top is 12. So I have got 2 sides of a triangle. I know the green side is 5, I know the blue side is 12, and I've got to work out the pink side. Now my formula that I'm going to be using is Pythagoras. Okay, so I'm going to be using Pythagoras' theorem, where a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now c is always the hypotenuse, the longest length of the triangle, which is why c is opposite the right angle at D, and it's the length from B to C, which is what we want to calculate. So I'm going to put these values into the formula. So instead of writing a squared, I'm going to write 5 squared. Instead of writing b squared, I'm going to write 12 squared. And c squared is just c squared. Now 5 squared is 25, 12 squared is 144. Because 5 times 5 is 25 and 12 times 12 is 144. Remember, this is on a non-calculator paper. I add these two numbers together to give me 169, and you'll be expected to know that the square root of 169 is equivalent to 13 for the last mark. So you need to know your square numbers and your cube numbers up to 5 cubed and up to 12 or 15 squared for the square numbers. So make sure you know those values. The mark scheme on this paper shows that you have to show correct working. So the answer is 13 and you must show your working. There were 7 marks in total. N1 means a method mark. OE means or equivalent. B1 is also a method mark. SOI means seen or implied. So if you've written 0.5 for sine 30 anywhere, you will get a mark. A1 are answer marks. And the word there means using your answer that you got for BD. So even if that answer was wrong, you could still get a method mark within there. Note SC3 down the bottom for answer with no working. So if you got the answer 13 without any working, you get 3 marks. That's all you can get awarded. For 2 marks was the answer 12 with no working, and 1 mark is the answer 5 with no working. So it's really important you show your working out in order to get the marks for this question, otherwise you won't get the maximum marks that you could be awarded. This is a question on box plots, and we're going to look at the key word in this question, which is the word range. This question is worth 2 marks. Now the range key fact is the highest value take away the lowest value. Please write down that formula, highlight it and stick in a bubble and make sure you know that formula. Our highest value is up on the right hand side and our lowest value is on the left hand side. So you need to know where these values are on the box plot, then you can work out your range. Press pause, have a go at working out the answer, then press play when you're ready to hear. So our maximum value, we've got to work out the scale. Now each little square is going up in 0.02. So that means our maximum value is 7.64 and our lowest value is 7. So if I take 7.64, take away 7, that gives me 1 mark. Then working out the answer to that is 0.64 for our second mark. The mark scheme just shows there are 2 marks available and N1 means it is a method mark. Here we have a question on box plots. This question is looking at some key values, and the key value in this question is the value 60, which is the number of full ground mice. We've got to work out the number of mice which are at least 7.2 centimetres long. So they're the key information in our question. It's worth 2 marks. Now to be able to answer this question we need to know some key facts. So our key facts are that the lower quartile is the lowest 25% of the data. The upper quartile is the top 25% of the data, and our median is the 50% of the data. Write down these key facts, highlight them and stick them in a bubble. Now what that means in relation to the diagram is linked to the box right in the centre of the diagram. So the upper quartile has just been highlighted with blue, the median is in the middle, and the lower quartile is on the left hand side. And these form the complete box. The whiskers do the maximum and minimum values that we looked at previously. Now in this question, you've got to work out the number of mice that are at least 7.2 centimetres long. Press pause, have a go at the question and then press play when you're ready to hear the answer. So 7.2 is this key value here at the lower quartile. And the lower quartile is 7.2 and that is 25% of the data. But we want at least 7.2 centimetres. So for at least 7.2 centimetres, we need the extra part from the 100, so 100 take away 25, which is 75% of the data. Now, in this question, we have got 60 mice. So we have got to work out 75% of 60. That will give you 1 mark. Now, in order to be able to do that, we're first of all going to work out 25% of 60, and then work out 75% by multiplying the answer to 25% by 3. Now 25% is a quarter, so we could just divide 60 by 4 to give me 15. So if I halve 60, it gives me 30, halve it again gives me 15, so 25% is 15. To work out 3 quarters, which is 75%, We times that answer we've just got, which is 15, multiply it by 3 to give me 75%. 15 times 3 is 45, so 10 times 3 was 30, 3 times 5 is 15, add them together to give you the 45 because it's on a non-calculated paper. And you need to write your answer on the dotted line. The mark scheme shows that there are 2 marks available. There is a method mark for getting 0.75 times by 60. OE means or equivalent. This is a question on box plot comparisons, and we're going to be looking at the key information within this question, and we're going to be comparing it to the box plot to the numbers in the question. So in the question we are told that we have got the third longest mouse, and the mouse is 7.35 centimetres long, and it says that the mouse I own are longer than the full-grown mice owned by the pet shop. Now in the question it says the full-grown mice, there are 60 full-grown mice, and this is shown in this box plot up here in the top left-hand side. Now we've got to give a mathematical reason to support Sam's conclusion, and we've got to say whether it is right or not. And we've also got to give a mathematical reason why this might be unreliable, and the number of marks here are rewarded at the end for 1 mark each here. Now the key facts we're going to be using in this question are that the lower quartile is the lowest 25% of the data, the upper quartile is the top 25% of the data, the median is 50% of the data, the spread can be measured by using the range, which is the highest value total the lowest value, or the interquartile range, which is the upper quartile take away the lower quartile. And we've got to work out which piece of information I need here in order to be able to compare the length of the full-grown mice over here in this box plot up on the left-hand side with this 7.35 centimetres long. So in order to do that, I need to be looking at the median. Right? Now the median is this middle line here that has just been highlighted on my box plot here. So this is the median at this point here. So the median is actually worked out to be 7.28. Now we can see that this value of 7.28 is actually lower than the 7.35. So the mark scheme says that the mouse median is longer than the box plot median. OE here means or equivalent, and this was worth 1 mark. So over here it says 1 mark. Now with no incorrect statement, you can accept the middle or the median, and if you've written it in terms of numbers, that's absolutely fine. That's awarded for 1 mark. Now part 2 on this question, we've got to give a mathematical reason why it may be unreliable. So what we're looking at here is we're looking at the spread or the range of the data. So the spread or the range or interquartile range of Sam's lengths is not known. OE means or equivalent, or you could have said that the sample was too small or equivalent. With no correct statement, accept he only measured the middle of that mouse or equivalent, accept the lengths of Sam's other mice are not known or equivalent, and Sam has only used 5 mice, which makes the data unreliable for comparison. So any of those reasons up here were acceptable. These are the main 2 that were chosen to give you the 1 mark for this question. So there was a total for 2 marks on this question. This is a video of writing a fraction as a recurring decimal. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the keywords in the question, which is the fraction 3 over 11. We've got to write it as a recurring decimal. These are the keywords in this question, and this is worth 2 marks. Now the key facts that you need to know to be able to answer this question are that a fraction means you divide the top number by the denominator, and you need to use the bus stop method of division to be able to do this. So press pause, have a go at using the bus stop method to divide 3 by 11, and then press play when you're ready to see the answer. So the bus stop method looks like this, where you have the number that you're divided by at the front of the bus stop, and the number that you're going to divide into goes underneath. Now 3 is the same as 3.0000, and as many zeros as you like. I've just put 4 down just to see what happens. And we can add more later if we need to, or not have as many if we don't need to. So I'm now going to look at the number 11, and I'm going to take that number 11 and I'm going to say, how many times does this 11 go into the number 3? Now 11 doesn't fit into 3, so we write 0 above. Okay. Now we then need to say, well, how many are left over? So what number is here is how many is left over, and that gets written at the top here in green. So this is this little 3 here that's just appeared. Now I need to put a decimal point in the same place as where it's underneath. So the decimal point goes always in the same place. And now I'm looking at how many times 11 goes into this new number here that's appeared, which is the number 30. Now 11 goes into 30 2 times, because 2 times 11 is 22. And then if I do 30 take away 22, I am left with a remainder of 8. So now I'm looking at how many times does 11 go into this new number 80. So how many times does 11 fit into 80? It goes in 7 times, because 11 times 7 is 77. How many left to get to 80? That is a remainder of 3. You'll notice that this 3 and this 3 are exactly the same. Now when you've got a recurring decimal, you're expecting to see some pattern recurring, some pattern repeating. You've got to work out what that pattern is. So we then say 11 into 30 again is going to be 2, the same as what we had before. So you can see we've got a pattern of 2 repeating. Then how many are left over? So 30 take away 22 leaves me with 8. So now I'm going to look at how many times does 11 go into 80. Again, that is 7, exactly the same as before. So you can see that these first 2 digits here are exactly the same as the second 2 digits. And if I kept continuing, it would still keep going 2, 7, 2, 7, 2, 7, which means it's a recurring decimal. Now how we write a recurring decimal is we write 0.27 and we put a little dot above the 2 and above the 7 to show that the 2 and the 7 are both repeating. And this is worth 2 marks. Now the mark scheme says there's an answer mark for 0.27 recurring. That gives you 2 marks. M1 is a division, so we're doing 3 divided by 11. And for marks accepted, they will accept 0.2727 with dots afterwards, or implied by 0.27 or 0.28. You can see here these are the 2 marks that you get from the question. It is a key question that you need to know how to do without a calculator. So this is a non-calculator question, so you must be able to divide without a calculator. This question is looking at a recurring decimal and we're going to convert it into a fraction. Now a recurring decimal is a digit that just keeps repeating throughout the decimal, and we're going to look at how we're going to deal with this repeating digit and convert it into a fraction. So the keywords in this question are 0.48 recurring. Now the 8 is recurring because there is a dot above the 8, which means that the 8 just keeps going on and on and on and keeps repeating. So this decimal is 0.4888888 with loads of 8s after the 8. The 8 is only the digit that is repeating because it's the only digit with the dot above the top. If there were 2 dots above 2 of the numbers, then 2 digits would be repeating. We've now got to write this decimal as a fraction, and we've got to write it in its simplest form, which means cancel your answer. This is worth 3 marks, and to be able to do this, we're going to look at some key steps. And my first step is going to be to let x be the initial decimal. So in this case, x is going to equal 0.48 recurring. Now you need to look at the number of digits that are recurring. In this question there is 1 digit recurring. It's only the 8 that is recurring, and because it's only the 8 that is recurring, we're going to multiply that number by 10. If you had 2 digits recurring, you would multiply by 100. 3 digits recurring, you would multiply by 1000. But here we're going to multiply by 10 because there is only 1 digit recurring. Step 3 is to subtract the new equation, which is the 10x equation in this case, from the initial equation. Then you're going to divide this new equation you've got by the value in front of the x. You've then got to write this fraction as a fraction without a decimal in. So this answer you've got will have a decimal in, so you've got to get rid of that decimal. So in this case you'll have to multiply both digits by 10 in order to get rid of that decimal point. Once you've got that new answer, you need to cancel this fraction down as low as it will go to get your answer in its simplest form. Now press pause, have a go at the question, and then press play when you're ready to hear the answer.
Great, now give me a thumbs up if you've got this answer and you think you're ready to hear the answer. So just press like in the button below or give me a smiley face in the comments section. So first of all, you should have written x is equal to 0.48 recurring. Now I've just written the 8 recurring in yellow, so you can see that this is the digit that is recurring. It just keeps going on, it will be 8, 8, 8, 8, 8. I've now got to multiply this digit by 10. So when I multiply by 10, all the digits are going to move to the left by 1 place. So the 4 is going to go to the other side of the decimal point. The 8 will move up. But because this 8 keeps repeating, I can actually say this is the same as 4.88 recurring, and this will give you 1 mark. Now the reason I've put an extra 8 in here is so I've got 2 digits behind the decimal point in both of these equations. That's a little trick there to help you to be able to do this. So now when I come to subtract the original equation, so that I've put the original expression underneath, so I've got x is equal to 0.48 recurring, when I'm going to subtract these two equations, these 0.8 recurring, which are in yellow on the end, will just disappear when you subtract because you've got so many 8s at the end, so many 8s at the end of the second expression, so they just cancel out. Leaving me with, on the right hand side, 4.8 take away 0.4, which is nice and easy to do now. And on the left hand side, 10x take away 1x, which is just going to be 9x. So 9x is going to equal 4.4 because 4.8 take away 0.4 is 4.4. The 8s, the recurring, will just cancel out. I then need to divide by the 9 in front of the x. So x will equal 4.4 divided by 9. This will give you your second mark. But this is not a fraction. You're not allowed a decimal in a fraction, so we need to get rid of the decimal in this fraction, and to do that we need to multiply both the numbers by 10. So 4.4 times by 10 is 44, 9 times 10 is 90. From here I've now got to write my answer in its simplest form. So to write it in its simplest form, I'm going to look at the numbers and find a number that goes into both of them. Now both of them are even. So the easiest way when they're both even is to halve both the numbers. So half of 44 is 22, half of 90 is 45. That will give you your final mark. Remember to write your answer on the dotted line. Give me a thumbs up and a smiley face if you got this correct. Well done, ready to hear your next video. This question is on similar shapes and we're looking at the length and volume ratios between them. Keywords of this question are similar. So we're told we've got mathematically similar shapes and the larger one is twice as tall as the smaller one. The smaller one has a volume 50 centimetres cubed and we've got to work out the volume of the larger one. This is worth 2 marks. Now the key facts we need to know for this question are that similar shapes mean that the ratio of the lengths are the same. So if the length ratio is 1 to L, where L stands for the length, that means that the volume ratio will be 1 to L cubed. These are the key facts we need to know for this question. Press pause, have a go at the question and then press play when you're ready to hear the answer. Okay, well done. If you've got an answer, give me a thumbs up and a smiley face in the comments box below. If you've already got an answer, let's see if you're correct. So we should have looked at the relationship between S and L, where S is the smaller shape and L is the larger shape. Now the length, we're told, is one is twice the other. So the smaller one is half the larger one, or the larger one is twice the smaller one, which means my ratio is 1 to 2. Where the 1 is the small one and the 2 is the larger one. Now using the key fact on the right hand side at the bottom, we've got the volume ratio is 1 to L cubed, which means my volume ratio is going to be 1 to 2 cubed, where 2 cubed is 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. So my volume ratio is 1 to 8, and that will give you 1 mark for getting either 2 cubed or 8. So I've now got to work out the volume of the larger ornament. So we're told the volume of a smaller ornament is 50 centimetres cubed, and we've got to work out where this green question mark is, what is the larger volume. So on the left hand side, to get from 1 to 50, I'm going to multiply by 50. And on the right hand side, I have to do exactly the same. So 8 times 50 will give me the right answer. So the larger volume will be 8 times 50. Now without a calculator, all we have to do is 8 times 5, which is 40. Add on a 0, which gives me 400. The unit's already given in the answer, so all you need to write down is 400 for the second mark, and that gives me 2 marks. Give me a thumbs up if you got it right. Well done everyone. Thanks for listening. This question is on simplifying surds. Now we know the question has got surds in it because there is a square root with a number underneath. That's all a surd is, a number with a square root. Now the key terms of this question are root 20 plus root 45, which are both surds, and we've got to leave our answer in the form k root 5, which means there's going to be some number multiplied by root 5 in our answer, and we've got to work out what that value of k is. This is worth 3 marks. Now to be able to do this question, we need to know some key facts. So when you're looking at surds and you're simplifying them, you need to look for a square number. Now there are going to be 2 numbers that multiply to give each of these numbers under the square root, and one of these numbers must be a square number. So we must look for a square number as a factor. Now your square numbers are the numbers 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, etc. Because 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16, 5 times 5 is 25, etc. And you need to be able to go the other way, because square root of 25 is 5, square root of 16 is 4, square root of 9 is 3, square root of 4 is 2, square root of 1 is 1, etc. Then once you've got your answer with 2 parts with the square numbers in, you're going to end up with 2 sections with a root 5 after them, and you're going to treat that like an x term, like you would solve normal algebra. So you're going to get one term in terms of root 5 and another term in terms of root 5, and then you need to combine them together like you would do with normal algebra. Press pause, have a go at the question, press play when you're ready to hear the answer. Well done. Give me a thumbs up or a like if you've got the question, you've got an answer, or write a comment below to show me that you can do the question. So here's the answer. So we're going to write root 20. Now 2 numbers multiplied to give 20, with one of them being a square number, is 4 times 5. We know one of the terms has got to be root 5 because in the answer it's got in the form k root 5. So 4 times 5 is 20. For the second one, multiplying 45 by 5, or 45 divided by 5 will give me 9. So 9 is a square number times by 5 is how I split up this root 45, and that will give you 1 mark for separating them like this. Now we can separate these two square roots and we can put them so there are more square roots in here. So root 4 times 5 is the same as root 4 times by root 5. I could do the same on the second term in yellow. So root 9 times root 5 is the same as root 9 times 5. So we can just separate them off. Now the reason we do this is so we can look at the square roots separately. So the square root of 4 is 2. So I can write root 4 times by root 5 as 2 root 5. The square root of 9 is 3, so I can write that as 3 root 5. From here, okay, that gives me my second mark. Now I can look at adding these two parts together. So we've got 2 root 5 plus 3 root 5. You can think of it as 2 apples plus 3 apples. We're going to end up with 5 apples. So 2 root 5 plus 3 root 5 is just going to be 5 root 5, and that is your last mark. Make sure you write your answer on the dotted line. The mark scheme says the final answer is 5 root 5. It is worth 3 marks. M2 is a method mark. M1 is also a method mark where we get our full marks from. This is a question on conditional probability, and to do this we're going to look at the keywords in the question. Now there are 60 students, 40 of which own a smartphone, 27 own a tablet and 8 own neither. Now a student's chosen at random from those that own a tablet. We've got to work out the probability that they also own a smartphone, and you must show your working out in this question. This question is worth 5 marks. Now the key way to do this is to use a Venn diagram. Now I'd like you to draw a Venn diagram of the key information in this question. See if you can work out how to do the answer. Press pause and then press play when you think you've got an answer. Remember, you're trying to work out the probability of people that own a tablet but they also own a smartphone. Press play when you're ready to hear the answer. Okay, great work. So give me a thumbs up if you've got an answer. Let's get ready to hear your answer. So when you do a Venn diagram, you must have a box around the outside of the Venn diagram. Now we need 2 sections on our Venn diagram. One section is for the smartphone and the other section is for the tablet. Now we know that 8 people own neither, so we have got the number 8 on the outside. Okay? But the key bit of information in this question here is what we're trying to find. We want to know the people that own a tablet also own a smartphone. Now these people in this yellow circle here own a tablet. But we also want to know that they own a smartphone, which is this section here in the middle, which is the overlap section. So the 2 double pink lines underlined there mean that we've got to actually work out this value in the middle, and I'm going to call that x. So if this section in the middle is x, and we know the total number of people that have got a tablet is 27, then the remaining section on the right is going to be 27 minus this x in the middle. And similarly on the left hand side of the smartphone, there were 40 people that owned a smartphone, it tells us at the top. So I've got x in the middle, so if I do 40 minus x, that will give me the section here on the left hand side. And on the right hand side, I've got 27 minus x. Now if you do all that, that will give you 1 mark. Now we're told in the question there are a total of 60 students. That means that the number of people here for the smartphone in the section and on the right hand side here of the tablet plus this 8 here are all going to add up to give me 60, the total number of people in the group. So if you wrote that down as a sum, 40 minus x plus the x in the middle plus the 27 minus x plus the 8 is equal to 60, that would give you your second mark. Now we need to simplify this. So we need to add together the numbers 40, 27 and 8, and we need to work out the x value. So minus x plus x minus x will leave me with 75, take away an x, and that will still equal this 60. I'm now going to do 2 things at once. So I'm going to get rid of this plus 60, and I'm also going to get rid of this minus x. Now the opposite to minus x is plus x, so I'm going to add x to both sides. And the opposite to plus 60 is subtract 60, so I'm going to subtract 60 from both sides. You can do this in 2 steps if you prefer. I've just done it in one. So I've done 75 take away 60 is going to be the x, because I've taken away 60 from both sides and I've added x to both sides to give me this bit here. From here, all I've got to do is work out the answer to 75 take away 60, which gives me 15 for my third mark. Now we've got to work out what the question is asking us to do. So we want to know the probability that people own a tablet also own a smartphone. So this is what we've got to find, the probability. Now they own a tablet, so the people that own a tablet is in this yellow section here, and there are 27 people, it tells us up in the question, own this tablet. So our probability is going to be out of 27, but we want to know the probability of people that have got a smartphone. So out of these 27 people here that have got a tablet, the people here, this X section here in the middle, are the people that have got a smartphone. And we've just worked that out to be 15 people. So my probability is going to be the 15 people in the middle divided by the 27, which is the total number of people that have the tablet, which is for your fourth mark. Now, if you got either the numerator or denominator correct in this fraction, you would have got yourself 1 mark. So your final fifth mark came from getting both these values correct, the 15 and the 27, for 1 mark. Remember to write your answer on the dotted line. Here is the mark scheme, so you can see on the left hand side we've got 15 over 27 OE. Now OE means or equivalent. You must show you're working out to get the full 5 marks of this question, so it's really important you show you're working out. We've got B3, which are 3 method marks, okay, for getting the answer of 15. M2 are 2 method marks for getting to the adding and subtracting the values with the 60 in for equivalent. M1 for getting an equation in terms of x for 1 mark. Now you've got SC2, which means if you've got the answer of 15 over 27 without any working out, you can only get a maximum of 2 marks for this question. So it's really important that you show you're working out when the question says you must show you're working out. If you got this correct, give yourself a big thumbs up and write a comment below. If you want to see any more videos, let me know what you would like to see. This is a question on simplifying algebraic fractions. Now the key word in this question is the word simplify and the expression that's been given, which is 2x squared minus 50 all over x squared plus 7x plus 10. This is worth 5 marks. Now to be able to answer this question we need to look at some key facts. First key fact is that as soon as you look at the word simplify and you see an algebraic expression like that, you need to be thinking factorise, which means you're putting into 1 bracket or into 2 brackets, and in this case you're going to be putting into 2 brackets. Once you've put the values into 2 brackets, it means you'll be able to cancel terms, because you can only cancel terms if they're multiplied together, so you must factorise first. Press pause, have a go at doing the question, press play when you're ready to hear the answer. Well done if you've got an answer. Give me a thumbs up and give me a happy face in the comment box below if you have got an answer. Let's see if you're correct. Now the numerator that we're going to be looking at here is 2x squared minus 50. Now to start with, this might look like it's going to go into 1 bracket rather than into 2 brackets because we have got 2 terms. Don't be put off because there is a square term in here. So we are first of all going to go into 1 bracket. So I'm going to take the common number of 2 outside the front. So I'll have 2, leaving me with x squared, but I'm going to divide my minus 50 by 2, which will give me minus 25 for my numerator. The denominator will go into 2 brackets. And to do my denominator into 2 brackets, I need 2 numbers that will multiply to give me 10. And these 2 numbers will also add to give me 7. So the numbers we're looking at, in the numerator, as I said, we're going to take a factor of 2 out, giving me x squared minus 25. The denominator, I need 2 numbers that multiply to give 10, so 2 times 5 gives me the 10, and 2 plus 5 gives me the 7 here, which is y is x plus 2, x plus 5. From here, I've now got a squared bracket at the top, so I've got x squared minus 25, and both of these terms are squared. So because these are both squared and there's a negative sign in the middle, we've got the difference of 2 squareds, which means but I have got x plus 5 and x minus 5 because I need two numbers that multiply to give minus 25 and they add to give 0. So I've got x plus 5, x minus 5 in the numerator. You're going to be given a clue by the denominator because you've got an x plus 5 in the denominator, so you need something to cancel. So one of the two terms in the denominator will be the same as one of the brackets in the numerator. Now the stage we've got to here gives me 1 mark for the numerator and 2 marks here for working out your denominator. Factorising further gives me another 1 mark for factorising my numerator further, and then you can see that these two bits on the right hand side here, the x plus 5 and the x plus 5 are exactly the same, so they will cancel. Leave me with 2x minus 5 over x plus 2, which is your final 5th mark. So your answer is 2x minus 5 over x plus 2. Give me a thumbs up if you got it correct. Well done everyone. The mark scheme on this question shows where the 5 marks are awarded. You could have expanded your numerator to give you 2x minus 10 in the numerator. That was accepted, as well as the factorised form, but we left it in. It was worth 5 marks. M2 means there are 2 method marks. M1 means there's 1 method mark. And these are all the information that you need to use in the mark scheme. This is a question on circle theorems and ratio. So we're going to look at the key words in this question. We've got A, B, C, D. These are points in the circumference, and you can see it's on a circle. We've got EF is a tangent, which means it touches the circle at one point. And when you hear this word tangent on circles, you should be thinking of some circle theorems relating to these. We're told that the angle BDF is 70 degrees. So that means the angle between B, D and F, which is the angle that's just been highlighted here, you can see is 70, and it has been labelled on the diagram. You're told that the angle BCD, which has just been highlighted in the diagram in yellow, so between B, C and D, is a value of 5, so it's in the ratio 5 to 2, but it's the 5 part of it, so I'm just going to write 5 in my diagram here. And the angle CBD, which is this angle in here which has been highlighted in pink, it has a part of 2. So this is the ratio 5 to 2. So you can see I've just labelled that on my diagram with the ratios. Now we've got to work out angle CBD, which is the angle in the pink, which is of the 2 part of the ratio. You must show you're working out in order to get the 5 marks of this question. So if you don't show working out, you won't get full marks of this question. Now the key facts you're going to need of this question is the alternate segment theory, which says that the angle between a chord and a tangent is equal to the angle in the alternate segment. And the cyclic quadrilateral, which means opposite angles add to 180. So if you have a quadrilateral, which is a 4-sided shape within a circle, with all 4 sides touching the circumference of the circle, then the 2 opposite angles will add up to 180 on the cyclic quad. This is all the facts you need to know to be able to answer this question. Press pause, press play when you've got an answer, and give me a thumbs up when you've got your answer. Great work everyone. So the first step in what we're going to look at is working out the angle A at the top, so BAD. Now to work out this angle BAD, we know it's going to be 70 degrees because the alternate segment theory, which says that BAD is 70, because this angle down here, which is 70, is going to be the same as this angle here, because for a reason at the top to do with the alternate segment theory, because the angle between the chords, so here is my chord BD, and the tangent, which is EF, is equal to the angle in the alternate segment. So this angle up here on this side up here is called the alternate angle. So this is why it's the alternate segment theory. This was worth 1 mark for getting this part. The next part of it, we're going to use the cyclic quadrilateral fact. So you can see here I've highlighted the quadrilateral in green, which means the angles opposite add up to 180. So this angle here that we've just worked out 70, and the angle opposite, where the yellow 5 is, add to 180. So your second mark comes from doing the cyclic quad, 180 minus 70, which gives me 110. Now you get 1 mark for doing 180 minus 70, and 1 mark for giving 110, which is a total of 2 marks for this section. So the angle in here is 110. Now we've got our ratio, so we know that this angle up here is actually 110, and this is equivalent to 5 parts. We want to work out this angle up here at B, which is equivalent to 2 parts. So we're going to look at the ratio between the angle at C and the angle at B, which is 5 to 2. And we've got an angle of 110 to, we're not sure what it is, this is what we've got to work out here. So we've got to work out what do I multiply 5 by to get 110 and 2 by to get for my answer. So to do this, we're going to do division. We're going to divide this 110 by 5 to work out what 5 times something gives me 110. So doing division, this is on the non-calculator paper, so you can see at the top here it's the non-calculator paper. We're going to do some division. So we say how many times does 5 go into 1? 5 doesn't fit into 1, so we write 0 at the top. And then I put a 1 in here, so there's 1 left over. So now it becomes 5 into 11. Now 5 and 11 goes 2, and there is 1 left over. So the remainder of the 1 comes up here next to the 0, giving me the number 10. I've now got 5 into 10, which goes 2, so it gives me an answer of 22, which gives you 1 mark. So I'm going to multiply 5 by 22 to get 110, which means I need to multiply my 2 by 22 to get the missing answer. So 2 times 22 is 44, which gives you your last final mark. Remember to write your answer on the dotted line to get your last final mark. Well done if you got that correct. Give me a big thumbs up and a smiley face in the comment box below if you got it correct and you had a great go at it. Well done. Now the mark scheme says your answer is 44 for showing correct working. This was worth 5 marks. B3 means that there is a method mark, 3 of them for getting the answer 110. M1 is 1 method mark for getting the angle of 70. The word there means using your answer. So whatever answer you got, if you do 180 minus the answer you got, then that will give you a method mark for using your angle. Poene means all equivalent, so if you use a different method at the end using your ratios, it doesn't matter as long as you've got that answer of 44. The last bit here means if you didn't show any working out and you just wrote down the answer 44, you can still get 2 marks. So it says in the question you must show working out, but if you've got the correct answer with no working on this question, you can still get 2 marks. In the bottom right hand corner it says may be seen on the diagram, so if you are writing angles on the diagram, then you will be given marks for writing your angles on the diagrams. In this question we're going to be finding the equation of the circle. The key points of the question are the coordinate 5, 7 root 2, the word circumference. We've got a circle, has a centre of 0, 0, and we've got to find the equation of the circle, and this is worth 4 marks. Now the key formula in this question that we're going to need to be able to answer this question are the equation of the circle centre 0, 0 and radius r is x squared plus y squared is equal to r squared. Now at GCSE this is the equation you need to know. It is different at A level because the centre isn't at 0, 0, but at GCSE your circle will always be 0, 0. Pythagoras' theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. These are the key formula that you're going to need to be able to answer this question. Press pause, have a go at the answer, and then press play when you're ready to hear the answer. Well done guys, give me a thumbs up if you've got an answer and a big smiley face to show me that you could do this question, so well done. So to start with, we're going to draw a circle. We're now going to identify that coordinate 5, 7 root 2. So I'm just going to put a cross on the circle because 5 is a slightly shorter distance than 7 root 2, because 7 root 2 means 7 times by root 2, which has got to be bigger than 5. So it's going to be shorter going across and steeper going up. Now this is the coordinate here. Now here is the length of this line, so from the edge, from the centre 0, 0 to the circumference of the circle, this blue line here is the radius of my circle. Now we know the distance, okay, from the centre 0, 0 going across is going to be 5, which is the x coordinate. We know the y coordinate is 7 root 2, which means the distance from the origin upwards is going to be 7 root 2, which you can see in the diagram. Now from the centre to the circumference is the radius, and this distance is r. Now I have got a right angle triangle appeared here. So with a right angle triangle I'm going to be using Pythagoras' theorem to be able to work out the value of r. So if you use Pythagoras' theorem, you get 5 squared plus 7 root 2 squared equals r squared. Remember the 7 root 2 is all squared, so that gives you 1 mark for getting this. Now 5 times 5 is 25, so that is 5 squared. 7 root 2 all squared means 7 times root 2 times 7 root 2. And that is going to equal r squared. Now to make this bit in yellow easier to work out, I'm going to multiply the 7's together first and the root 2's together second. So I've got 7 times 7 times root 2 times root 2, which is going to equal r squared. Now we know 7 times 7 is 49. And we know root 2 times root 2 is going to be the same as root 4. And the square root of 4 is 2. So root 2 times root 2 is just going to be 2. So 25 plus 49 times 2 is going to equal r squared. Now double 49 is 98, and that gives me 1 mark for getting 98. Adding those together gives me 123, which is the value of r squared. Now in the formula for the equation of a circle it says x squared plus y squared equals r squared. So I don't need to worry about squaring root of this to find r, because in the formula for the equation of a circle I need the value of r squared. So my equation of a circle is just going to be x squared plus y squared is going to equal 123, and that will give me your last mark. So there's the 4 marks. Well done if you got 4 marks for that question. Remember to put a smiley face in the comments below if you understand this question. You know how to do it now, so well done. Now the mark scheme says that x squared plus y squared equals 123 is your final answer. You've got 4 marks for this question. B2 means 2 method marks. M1 is a method mark, 1 method mark. OE means or equivalent. And your answer can be written in the form x squared plus y squared equals k for 1 method mark. So here is all the information that you need. This is a question on simultaneous equations, and we're going to look at the key facts in the question. So we've got an equation x squared minus 2y equals 5. The second equation 4y plus z equals 7. We've got to write z in terms of x, and we've got to give your answer in its simplest form. This is worth 4 marks. Now this is a very tricky kind of question because you've got to give your answer z in terms of x. And normally when you solve simultaneous equations, you come down to find a value of x and then find a value of y. Whereas this one is z in terms of x, so it makes it slightly harder. The steps we need to follow to be able to do this are, first of all, we're going to label up the equations. Second, we're going to eliminate the y because that is the value it's not in terms of. So the question says z in terms of x, so we need to eliminate y. To do this, we need to rearrange an equation to find y. Then substitute this equation y into the other equation. Then we're going to simplify, which means rearrange to find z. Once we've done these 5 steps, then you will be able to get an answer z in terms of x. Press pause, have a go at doing the question, press play when you're ready to hear the answer. Okay, give me a thumbs up if you had a go at doing this question. It is tricky, so listen carefully as to how to do this question. So, first of all, we're going to label the equations 1 and 2. So the first equation in blue I've labelled 1, and the second equation in yellow I've labelled 2. I'm now going to rearrange equation 1 to find my y term. So I'm going to add 2y to both sides, and that will give me 1 mark. So I'm going to get rid of that minus 2y, and I'm going to add 2y to both sides. So this minus 2y I've got up here in the question, I'm going to add 2y to both sides, which gives me 5 plus 2y. Now if we look carefully in the question, okay, I'm going to get the 2y on its own. So next I'm going to get rid of this plus 5, and the opposite to plus 5 is subtract 5, so I'm going to take 5 from both sides. Now up in the question up here, I've got a 4y. Now normally we would rearrange this to find y and substitute in, but because I actually want to find a 4y, and if I divide this equation here by 2, I'm going to get a fraction, which I'm then going to have to multiply by 4, which seems pointless, so I can just save some time and multiply every term in this expression here by 2 to give me a 4y here on the right hand side. X squared times by 2 is 2x squared. Minus 5 times 2 is minus 10, which gives me 2x squared minus 10y equals 4y, and this is my third equation for the second mark. Now this equation here, this 4y, is the same as what is up here in equation 2. So this is part 4. I'm going to substitute y into the other equation, but not just y in this case, I'm going to substitute the whole of 4y. So instead of writing 4y, I'm going to write 2x squared minus 10. So I'm substituting 3 into equation 2, so I get 2x squared minus 10, which was this equation here, which is the 4y. So this is my 4y up here, I've just substituted it in. The plus z stays put, and the equals 7 stays put as well, so they're just exactly the same, and that is my third mark. From here I've got to rearrange to go z in terms of x. So I've got to rearrange this to find z. So what I need to do is eliminate the two things in purple or pink here on the left hand side. The 2x squared is a positive 2x squared, so I'm going to subtract 2x squared to get rid of the 2x squared. And the opposite to minus 10 is plus 10, so I'm going to add 10 to both sides. So z will be 17 because 10 plus 7 gives me 17. This is a plus 2x squared, so subtract it, take it to the other side. Gives me minus 2x squared. This is 1 mark. Remember to write your answer on the dotted line to get your full and final answer and to get the full marks. Give me a comment below and give me a thumbs up or a smiley face in the comments below if you got this correct. So well done, guys. The bar scheme on this question shows that z is equal to 17 minus 2x squared. It's worth 4 marks. You've got 3 marks, so B3 means 3 method marks for getting 17 minus 2x squared, for getting the z equals at the beginning. You get 3 marks for working out any of these parts in here. OE or is equivalent, so if you've done it in a different way, so I did it in a slightly different way to what the mark scheme is showing here. M2 is for 2 method marks, M1 is for 1 method mark, and this is how the mark scheme shows that you should lay your work out. So have a look through and make sure you understand what is going on. This is a question on the perimeter of a sector. Now the shape you can see in the diagram is a sector, and we've got to work out the perimeter. Now the perimeter is the distance all the way around the edge, so the total distance all the way around the edge. So in this question here, the key facts are that the radius is equal to 10, which is highlighted in the diagram. It tells you the diagram is not to scale, which means you can't use a protractor to measure the angle AOB. The area of the sector is 40 pi. We've got to work out the perimeter of this sector. Your answer must be in the form a plus b pi, and a and b are integers, which just means they are whole numbers. And you must show you're working out, and this is worth 6 marks. Now to be able to answer this question, we need to know some key formula. So the key formula first of all is the area of the sector, which is the angle, and this is the angle between A, O and B, so this missing angle here, divided by 360 times by the formula for the area of a circle, which is pi r squared. So my area of a sector is the angle over 360 times pi r squared. The arc length is a fraction of the circumference of the circle, and the circumference of the circle can be worked out in 2 ways, either pi d or it could be worked out by 2 pi r. So there's 2 different ways this formula could be written depending on what information you've been given. Now we've been given the radius of this question, so the bottom formula here makes more sense to use because we know the radius. So my arc length is the angle divided by 360 times 2 times pi times my radius. We will also need to note that the perimeter of the sector. Now it just makes sense, this is a radius from A to O, a radius from O to B, so this is 2r, so 2 radiuses or 2 radii, and then you add on your arc length AB. That is the perimeter of the sector. Now r is the radius and d is the diameter. Press pause, have a go at answering this question, press play when you're ready to hear the answer. So, this question involves us to know the angle between A, O and B. And once we've got that angle, that is going to be the key thing connecting the formula of the area of the sector and the area of the arc length. Okay, now give me a thumbs up if you've managed to work out this angle here. If you haven't done it yet, press pause and then press play when you've got the angle here. So we're going to be using the formula here for the area of the sector. Now we know the formula is the angle divided by 360 times pi r squared. and the sector area is 40 pi. So I can literally just write that down as a formula. So the area of the sector is 40 pi, which is going to be the angle, which we now know is x divided by 360, times pi times by my radius squared, where the radius is 10. Now, if you notice on both sides have got a pi in, so I can cancel both the pi's on both sides. I'm then going to rearrange to find x. So I'm going to get rid of this divide by 360, and I'm going to multiply by 360. And I'm going to get rid of this times by 10 squared. And now 10 squared is 100, because 10 times 10 is 100. So I'm going to get rid of the times by 100, I'm going to divide by 100. So if you wrote 40 times 360 over 100 or equivalent, that will give you a mark. For writing out the formula for the area of the sector, putting them equal to each other is a second mark. Now from here, both the numerator and denominators have got zeros. And there are 2 zeros in the numerator and 2 zeros in the denominator, so these will just cancel, leaving me with 4 times 36 divided by 1. So to do this without a calculator, we just have to work out 36 times 4. So to find 36 times 4, we're just going to double 36 and double it again, which will give you 144 for 1 mark. So my angle here is 144. Now I know this angle, I can now work out the arc length, because I've got the angle divided by 360 times 2 times pi times my radius, which is 10. So my arc length here is 144 over 360 times 2 times pi times 10. And that's your 4th mark. From here, we've got to work this out without a calculator. So you can see we've got a times by 10 and a 0 in the denominator, so the zeros will just cancel at this stage here. So I have got 144 divided by 36 times 2 pi, and to do this without a calculator is quite tricky. So what we're going to do first is we're going to look at the 2 and 36, because these are both even and we're just going to half them. So half of 2 is 1, half of 36 gives me 18. So that is the same as 144 over 18 lots of pi. So the pi will just stay there on the end. Now I've then got to simplify this. Now 144 and 18 are both even, so I'm just going to halve both the numbers. So a half of 144 is 72, and a half of 18 is 9. So I've got 72 over 9 pi. Now 72 over 9 is the same as 72 divided by 9. Now 72 divided by 9 is just 8, so this is the same as 8 pi, and that's how we'd work it out without a calculator. Now once I've got my arc length, the question said find the perimeter. So here's my formula for the perimeter. It's 2 lots of the radius, so it's going to be 2 times the radius, which is 10, which gives me 20, plus my arc length, which is 8 pi, for my 5th mark. My final mark comes from writing the answer of 20, because 2 times 10 is 20, plus the 8 pi for my 6th and final mark. Give me a smiley face in the comment box below if you've got this one correct. So well done if you've had a good go on this one. Here's the mark scheme. So on the left hand side it says the answer is 20 plus 8 pi for the final answer with correct working. It's worth 6 marks. B3 means there are 3 method marks. OE means all equivalent. M2 gives you 2 method marks. M1 is 1 method mark. X0 scored SC2 for the answer of 20 plus 8 pi. Now if you've managed to write down an answer of 20 plus 8 pi without any working, you've done really well. And the mark scheme said that, well, the question said you had to show correct working. And if you didn't put any working down, you can only get a maximum of 2 marks. So well done if you managed to get those 2 marks without any working. It does say it may be implied on the diagram, so if you put values in on the diagram, then you can work things out using the diagram. This is a question on algebraic proof, and we need to look at the key parts of this question. So we've got n, we're told it's a positive integer, which means it's a positive number. We've got to prove that 2n plus 1 times by n minus 3 times by n plus 2 plus 3n all times by n plus 7 is always even, and this is worth 6 marks. Now to be able to do this, we need to know some key facts. First of all, we need to know what an even number is. So if I take any number and I double it or multiply it by 2, it will make the number even by the definition of the word even. So 2n is any even number. Now when you expand these brackets, you need to multiply all the terms together. So every single term must be multiplied by all the other terms, and that's what we do when we expand the brackets. Press pause, have a go at the question, and then press play when you're ready to hear the answer. Give me a thumbs up and like this question if you got an answer. So first of all, we're going to have a go at expanding the first brackets. Now we've got two brackets to start with, 2n plus 1 and n plus n take away 3. We're going to multiply the 2n times by the n, which gives me 2n squared. I'm then going to multiply the 2n by the negative 3, which gives me negative 6n. I'm now going to look at multiplying the 1 by the n, which gives me plus 1n. And the 1 times the negative 3 is minus 3. You will get 2 marks for expanding that correctly. So you have multiplied every single term in those first two brackets by each other. We're then going to multiply the answer to that by the n plus 2. And we're going to expand the next one separately. So you can think of these two things as separate terms. So the first 3 brackets multiplied together are all multiplied together on their own. The last 2 bits, the 3n and the n plus 7, are multiplied together on their own. So 3n times by n is 3n squared. 3n times by 7 is plus 21n, and that is worth 1 mark for expanding the second bracket. Now I'm going to tidy the terms together in that big bracket at the start. So the negative 6n plus n gives me a negative 5n in the middle of that 2n squared and the negative 3 in that first bracket. Now I've got to expand the 2 brackets on the left hand side. So I've got 2n times by n gives me 2n cubed. 2n squared times by 2 gives me 4n squared. Negative 5n times by n gives me negative 5n squared. Negative 5n times by 2 gives me negative 10n. And then the last ones multiplied together are the negative 3 times by the n, which is negative 3n. The negative 3 times by the 2, which is negative 6. And then I still add on the 3n squared plus the 21n, and that gives me 1 mark for expanding the brackets fully. Now I need to collect the terms, so I need to simplify the expression down. So I've got a 2n cubed. There's only one term with n cubed in, so we've got a 2n cubed. Now I'm going to look at the n squared term. So I've got 4n squared, take away 5n squared plus a 3n squared. So if I add these together, I've got 4 take away 5, which is negative 1, plus 3 gives me 2. So I've got 2n squared. Looking at the n terms, I've got negative 10n, take away 3n, plus 21n, which is the same as 21, take away 10, take away 3, which will leave me with 8n. Then the negative 6 just stays put at the end. Now you'll notice that all these terms are even, which is good because we've got to prove it is always even. So to do this, I'm going to take a factor of 2 outside this expression. So if I divide each of the terms by 2, 2n cubed divided by n, divided by 2 is 2 bracket n cubed. The 2n squared divided by 2 just leaves me with n squared. The 8n divided by 2 gives me 4n. And the negative 6 divided by 2 gives me negative 3. And that is 1 mark. Now I've got 2 times n number. And we don't know what that number is, but it doesn't particularly matter. It is just 2 times by any number. And by stating I've got 2 times any number, that means you have got an even number, because the definition of an even number was it was 2n, because it was always even. So I've got 1 mark for doing 2 and your factorised answer. And then for explaining that it is an even number, then that is your last and 6th mark, and that's how you get all the marks in the question. Now the masking here shows us that the final answer is the 2n cubed plus the 2n squared plus the 8n minus 6, all in the factorised form, and that gives you 5 marks. M3 means there are 3 marks for getting to the first stage. OE means or equivalent. M2 means you get 2 marks for an expanded pair. M1 is for you get 3 terms correct. A1 here, this is an answer mark, so this is your explanation. You're explaining what is going on to show they're divisible by 2. So if you show that you're divisible by 2, or you've got a factor of 2 out the front, it means you've got an even number. There is an alternative method down the bottom that you can have a look at as well. If you've enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Comment below to let me know what you would like to see in my next video. See you next time!